Hi, I'm Paul Friedman, founder of the Marriage Foundation, and the topic is a question. Does fixing my marriage by myself work? Hi, welcome back. I'm Paul Friedman, and this question comes up a lot because our whole thing is you not only can fix your marriage by yourself, but you should. It's the better way to do it. So, does fixing my marriage by myself work? The answer is, and I've been doing this since 2001. The answer is yes, clearly. So, why? Why does it work? And how does it compare to more traditional methods of marriage saving? First, let me say that as unfortunate as it is, because I love psychologists, not all of them, but I love psychologists who got into it to help people. And there's many, in fact, I have trained many to the teachings that I've discovered. But the teachings that they became psychologists on are really not suited for marriage. And what's the proof of that? Let's do that first. Let's approach it from what does traditional marriage counseling and expertise have? Well, Western psychology is about digging down, finding issues, phobias, casting blame, unfortunately, suggesting that people have these mental diseases and that's why it doesn't work and all of that. But their success rate is about the same as it's been for 100 years. In other words, we have a 50% divorce rate now. It's not working. So I was a divorce mediator until 2001 when a couple asked me to help them save their marriage instead of end it because I was a communications expert. And so naturally, they felt I should be able to help them. And I thought, okay, let's give it a try. And I started doing kind of a deeper dive into marriage because when I talked to my marriage counselor friends and told them what was going on with this couple, they said, "You're good at this, Paul. Just listen to them and then see if you can give them suggestions. See if you could find out what's wrong and help them fix it." And I thought, it didn't feel right. So the question came up in my mind, well, why do people get married in the first place? And I was kind of shocked. I shocked myself with that question. I never asked myself that question. And at the time, I was divorced. And I hit myself in that. Why didn't I ask that question? Why did I get married in the first place? And so it took a while for me to answer the question. First, I asked everyone I bumped into, friends and strangers in line at Starbucks. I said, "Why did you get married?" Number one answer, I fell in love. Number two answer, want to have kids. Number three answer, I didn't want to die alone, literally. And I thought, oh, okay, those are really good answers. I get it, but there's something missing. And so I said, okay, what is it about those three reasons that are compelling? What is underlying? And they all of those are so that we are happier, right? I'll be happier if I'm with my soulmate till the end of our days. I'll be happier if we have children, etc. So I thought, okay, well, what universally creates happiness? And here is where we got to the essence of the teachings that I discovered. Because I realized we really get married for happiness. We want to be happy. And then I asked the question, well, what is universally going to give happiness? And the answer is love. Oh, well, that ties into I fell in love, and that's why I wanted to be married. And that was the number one reason people said, I fell in love, and then children. Okay, so anyway, that makes total sense. But we're not always loved, are we? And when someone loves us with all of their might, it doesn't mean we're going to feel that love. So things were starting to get deeper. And I started to realize a lot about love. And I put it in the books that I have. I wrote 2 books. I should mention that after my first couple, who's probably still together if they haven't passed on, but they were happily married for a very long time. And then I worked with couples initially, and then only individuals. Only individuals. Because I realized that working with couples was fraught with all kinds of blame games, flirting, confessions, or I won't talk about it. So many perils. And when I spoke to my friends who were marriage counselors and told them, I think this couples counseling isn't a good venue. And they said, yeah. They agreed, but it's what people buy into because there's an assumption in the world that we can work this out together. And there's some truth to that, but not when it comes to infusing your marriage with love. In fact, what I eventually came to was a definition for marriage that, I mean, if you look up what is marriage, you'll see the most ridiculous non-definition definition. So I came up with a definition. So remember, it's all about love, right? Because love creates happiness. And so seeking love is a spiritual pursuit because love is the ultimate spirituality, love. I mean, we see God for his love. And so I say this, marriage is a union of 2 individuals, each on their own spiritual path, but with their soulmate. You see? So it's an individual path. Now, here's what's cool. So picture a container, and only 2 of you are in this container. So you're either soulmates in this container or cellmates. And what you put into that container will determine which one that is. So if you're constantly putting in love and things that connect you, I call them beneficials. If you constantly put in beneficials into this container and you're doing it with a mindset, a proactive mindset, you just keep putting in and you stop putting in the things that are detrimental, well, it's impossible to not heal your marriage. But if you are working on it, quote unquote, together, you're negotiating, you're struggling, you're fighting. You're going, no, that was your fault. No, that was your fault. Okay, it was my fault, but I'm tired of all this. It doesn't work. So working on your marriage by yourself really means a few things. Number 1, it means gaining control over your habits. And I know they say you can't, but I'm here to tell you, you can. You just need to use proper techniques and methodology, which I discovered some beautiful ones. I feel like they were given to me by God, especially the SO technique. It's amazing, where you stop, evaluate, and act with wisdom. So when you do that for each and every thought, my God, things really change up here in your mind. And as your mind starts cleaning, you learn to cultivate love. And you fill your space with love. At the same time, you're learning all about marriage because none of us have learned about marriage properly. Most of us have learned about marriage from watching sitcoms or movies and, reading dumb articles that, are intriguing but useless or detrimental. And a lot of the information out there now is just terrible. Like setting boundaries, how to, I've seen articles and videos on how to properly fight in your marriage. And I'm going, wait, that's not happiness producing. You should get rid of fighting altogether. And you don't need both of you to stop fighting. You only need one of you, because a fight takes two. And if it's just you refusing to fight, well, there's no fight. There might be the beginnings, but then you stop it. I teach you all of that. So I have a couple of books. One is Lessons for a Happy Marriage, was the first book that I wrote. Very powerful stuff in there. Very powerful. As I was writing it, I used to write this book in a Starbucks, believe it or not. And people, you know how Starbucks are. They're like little communities, and people would come up to me and they would ask me questions and tell me what's going on. And of course, you know, I'm here to serve. So that was what I would do. And then a guy was sitting next to me one day, and someone came up and told me how they were progressing with the advice I gave him. And the guy said, look, I wonder if you could help me out. You know, I was actually just going home to tell my wife that it's over. And I said, okay, I'll tell you what. I literally had a client in a few minutes. I said, I'll send you the transcript so far. And I put this in the book. He sent me an email and said, you know, it must be God's will, because I read your book, I gave it to my wife, and now we're so happy I can't believe it. So that was my first book. And then Breaking the Cycle was my second book. I wrote that so I could teach marriage counselors these teachings, because they're vital, they're amazing. And then later on, and I worked with individuals for 8 years, hundreds of men, hundreds of women, and it was a beautiful experience. And from that came the courses. And it's an online course. One is for men, one is for women. It's a 12-week course, very inexpensive. There's plans for under $10 a week. And I remember it just comes to mind. I was meeting with a couple, and this couple was very interesting. She contacted me and said, you know, I'm so-and-so, and I am a psych nurse, and I work for such and such a person who's very famous in San Diego. And I said, well, why are you calling me? And she said, well, all that stuff is baloney. So I said, okay, no argument from me. So I met with them, and her husband was one of the biggest people I've ever seen. Huge guy. And he worked in construction and put up retaining walls on the sides of highways. And, you know, I had a table because, you know, we don't do the chairs and how does that make you feel stuff, because it really doesn't help. And it's very didactic, just like in the course where I'm explaining things. And I'm explaining, and all of a sudden he's going, and I can see he's getting angry. And I'm thinking, oh my God, how do I get out of here without getting killed? What am I saying that's bothering him? So I stopped and just for a minute, and he pounds his fist on the table and he goes, we've been to sessions over and over for months and years, and I've learned more in 15 minutes. And he was really mad at everybody for that. But it's true. You need to learn about marriage so that you could succeed in marriage, and that's part of it. It's a very important part. Anyway, I'm going on, aren't I? So I hope that you learned from this. I hope you're inspired by this, because I'm here to tell you that your marriage is far from over. And I almost don't care how close to being over you think it is. It's far from over. So share this video with some friends if you think it has value. Maybe even put it on social media. Leave a comment. let me know your thoughts. And if you have a problem that you want me to discuss with you in the comments section, it's anonymous. No one's going to know who you are. I won't know who you are, but I'll respond and I'll give you the best advice that I can. Or there's a link below for Ask a Counselor, and they're very well trained. I trained them all because there's a course. If you want to be a counselor, if you're a therapist and you're checking this out because one of your clients told you about it, you should learn these teachings, and it's inexpensive, again, to become a counselor. And, we want more and more people to have better and better marriages. So again, I'm Paul Friedman. I founded the Marriage Foundation, and I'm so glad you stopped by. God bless you and take care. Thank you.